Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Some of the greatest adventures of my life are sitting in this museum.
Big deal.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Oh, your teacher.
Part-time.
Mr. Henry Jones, Jr. of Princeton, New Jersey.
I like Indiana. We're named the dog Indiana.
Now, what shall we talk about?
That sound you hear is not Captain Marvel. It is not the mighty Thor. It is Indiana Jones, Thunder in the Orient. Welcome, IndyCast listeners and further fans, to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I'm Joe Stuber, joined, as always, by my podcasting partner, my ally from Austria, my brother from another mother, Keith Voss. Keith,
hello,
my friend.
Joe. Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We don't have a whole lot to talk about, do we?
No, there's a couple of issues.
Been pretty quiet.
A couple of Dark Horse comic. There's really nothing else going on in the world of Indiana Jones now, is there?
Not too
Is there
much,
something else happening?
I don't think so. We should probably listen to the IndyCast, maybe check the news segment, see if there's anything going on. But how crazy is this? Okay, look,
Indy
we knew
5.
that, look, not surprising. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now on the IndyCast, especially since Disney bought Lucasfilm. We knew this was coming. They bought Paramount out for the distribution, right? You know, all these different things. You don't spend money for no reason. We knew
yes.
that.
We just kind of, I mean, that's why I'm kind of course I'm excited about it, but I'm kind of like, yeah, cool. But we've been talking about an Indy 5 coming out. We knew it was going to happen for a long time. And when it was finally announced, it was just the icing on the cake. Yeah, we know it's coming. I'm not going to really be get overly excited about it until I'm sitting in the theater.
Yeah.
And the film is finished and made, and I'm about to watch it with all of my fellow IndyCasters when we're all together in the theater to watch Indy 5. I'm not going to get excited until that moment because who knows? Anything can happen from now until then.
Doesn't it feel like we've had a 3-year buildup? I mean, we've been talking about it, so it's like we've all been anticipating it. But then when you hear that announcement that it is happening. That Ford's involved, Spielberg's involved, and it's interesting too because I think was it Frank Marshall that was like Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. There's not going to be any other Indiana Jones. Okay, for this one, But look, we know we're going to get a rebooted Indy or a prequel, well, however you want to call it. It's not a I know we've thrown that term out before, but a prequel Indy, the 40s, a younger Indiana Jones. We know we're going to get that eventually, but at least one more very cool adventure featuring Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. That's going to be awesome.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's definitely quite exciting news. Now, Joe, with all this talk about Indy 5, they apparently it seems as if they've maybe nailed a story or they kind of know which direction they want to go in. What would you like to see for an Indy 5?
Well, and we've talked about this on the roundtable. I mean, and I think we're the only ones that haven't weighed in yet, too.
Right, exactly.
And we will get to Thunder in the Orient, I promise. There is a very cool adventure.
I mean, but
Keith and I haven't. Come on. Keith and I haven't hit the mics in a little while, but we've talked about this on the roundtable. Look, to me, as long as I get Harrison Ford and the hat and the whip and the gun, I'm good to go. Now there are things that I'd like to see them tweak moving forward. I don't necessarily. There's one big thing that I want, and again, story-wise, that can all be worked out. MacGuffins, wherever we go, we just want to see this cool character. I'd really like to see a stripped-down version, a leaner, meaner, closer to Raiders of the Lost Ark type of adventure. I don't need summer blockbuster-looking CGI. Massive things going on, all kinds of crazy special effects. We don't really need that. You think about Raiders of the Lost Ark, it looks like an independent film. I mean, they shot it guerrilla style when they were out there. I mean, half the crew had dysentery because they were, on these location shoots. I want to see them on location. I know that might not happen because everybody's got to shoot in L.A. or Cleveland or whatever the cheapest thing is. But I want to see a streamlined version. I want to see these characters. I don't necessarily want a whole bunch of people hanging around Indy, him dragging everybody through creation, you know?
Have they painted themselves in a corner a little bit with him being married to Marion and, with Mutt around?
Not really. No, Kep can write around that. I mean, you think about it. I mean, she's back home. He's on an adventure. He gets called out, because the movies always start with an adventure, a pre-adventure adventure. Or in case of Crystal Skull, it was like the actual adventure going in. But, I mean, you could just have him on an adventure already. And he could just, telegraph back to Mary. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have, and you don't have to have Mutt in it. He could be off at college doing something. I mean, they even established that you're going to school, so okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Send him to school. He's learning. He's in the library or the library, as they say in Crystal Skull.
I think it's this is going to be the 5th Indiana Jones movie. So the audience now has an expectation going in, whereas with Raiders, when that came out, it was kind of a surprise. All of a sudden you got this character, you got these situations, you got these this MacGuffin, and you got this amazing adventure film out of that. And then from then on, the audience was kind of expecting a certain, you had to hit a certain level of excitement. Okay, now we have to have the girl, we have to have the MacGuffin, we have to have this kind of formula. I would really like to see them change it up a bit. Now, that being said, I would love to have this whole story come full circle. And while I'm a big fan of having maybe every adventure be a little different for Indiana Jones, a la James Bond, I wouldn't mind seeing him go after the Ark again.
But we've seen it in 2 movies.
Yeah, but I mean
we had the we had the Cup of Christ in the 3rd movie. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, do we even need a MacGuffin?
Well, that's,
or is he just...
It could be a location. It could be, who knows? Who knows?
Or somebody from his past that comes in and you just get like a really cool villain and something, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know that we necessarily need him chasing something. I know there's a template that's been put down, but he wasn't chasing anything in Temple of Doom. I mean, he sort of stumbled into it, but he wasn't he just, it was something that he happened into.
That was an adventure mostly about self-discovery, Joe. Yes, I understand
completely
its power
different,
now. Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. I mean, does it have to be a MacGuffin? Probably. Like you said, it's probably going to be, it's a summer blockbuster, whereas the first one was more independent. The second one even felt a little bit independent with probably a little bit of a bigger budget, but I think then after by the time Last Crusade and of course when Crystal Skull came around, then those all of those stakes were raised. The audience had an expectation of what an Indiana Jones movie should be, and if they don't get more of the same, I mean we were just talking earlier before we started recording about the similarities of A New Hope and The Force Awakens, but people still loved that movie. I mean, what if they get something very similar, a soft reboot of Raiders of the Lost Ark in an Indy 5?
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's a lot. And there's a lot of different things okay, think about it. Lucas more than likely not going to be involved, so that's always kind of been the driving force behind everything. They're always waiting on the story idea, the script, the original script from George or the story from George, the MacGuffin. All these things, it had to have aliens. I mean, Spielberg, he's on record as saying, I didn't want aliens. I didn't like this storyline, but I was the director for hire. Not the greatest marketing move, but you're Spielberg, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
But, so there was all this conflict going into Crystal Skull. We love it, but we love it in spite of the fact that it's a hot mess. I mean, it really was a hot mess when you think about it. How many different screenplays did David Koepp have to sort of mash together?
He Frankensteined it.
He did. It's like it had to have the aliens. It had to have this, and it had to have this, and I put this together, and then there's Mutt, and then there's all these different things, and the fridge,
and that was from Darabont's script, by the way. That wasn't Koepp. He added that from Darabont's script. So.
Well, and where that originally came from too was Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about that. So
refrigerator was supposed to be the original time machine.
Yeah,
that's right.
It was there's all these different ideas that came bouncing around. So now we get a chance to see David Koepp if it's from a clean slate. here's this Indiana Jones adventure, go. And then you've got Disney backing it. So they're putting all these different creative people in place. And again, I look, George Lucas created the character. We love that he created the character. But in many different ways, it was sort of just this, one person in charge of everything. And it sort of drove that, and maybe that impacted a lot of decisions that were going on. Now you're getting all these different creative types coming in. I don't know. We're going to see. I think it's going to be different. I don't think they're just going to say, here's the Indiana Jones template. Here's the pre thing. Here's him at the college. Here's him getting his assignment. Here's him going to some crazy location. Here's him going after McGregor. I don't think we're going to get that.
Indiana Jones movies.
Of course, I say that in Star Wars was very derivative of Force.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But don't forget too that Indiana Jones is also always has been a collaborative effort between the big three, which is Harrison, Lucas, and Spielberg. You still have two out of three, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think after the I don't know, I would say the negative feedback that they had from Crystal Skull, I think that they're going to go into this one with a little bit more of a solid mind as far as we know what the fans didn't like in the last one. We know what does work. Yeah. So I think it will be, in many ways, an Indiana Jones film by committee. They are, I think, going to stick to the formula. They're going to give us what we want, and then this will probably be Harrison Ford's last appearance as Indiana Jones. So this will truly be riding off into the sunset, where it probably – do we need an Indy 5? Probably not. Do we want one? Of course, we're Indiana Jones fans, but we probably don't need an Indy 5. They're going to take advantage of this. They're going to do it right. They're going to do it – they're going to do exactly what the fans want.
We hope. Yeah,
Let's hope. They have a couple of years. Let's just make sure they do it right, and we'll all be there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, of course we're going to go see it. But, it's like, you're set – what they did with Star Wars. Okay, yes, it was derivative of 4. But it gave us those characters back. It put them in a very cool setting. It gave us some fun things. And it kind of just jump-started this franchise that they're taking into many, 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 many movies.
Yes.
Again, same thing with the Marvel universe. You're building these things. You're building this whole universe. You're not just making one movie and saying, let's give the Indiana Jones fans – one last ride off into the sunset. There's no way they spent all that money to do all those things. So
yeah, but all that money is going to come back from Star Wars. With Indiana Jones, right, I think it's going to be a little harder to do. That's going to be harder to do.
No. I've said from day one, the second Disney bought out Lucasfilm, I said we're going to be getting a bunch of Indiana Jones movies, and they're going to set it back in the 1940s. And I still think that's going to happen. And I think the smartest thing they can do, and I think the thing that they're going to keep under wraps, is I think that pre-adventure, that little, teaser at the beginning, I think that's going to be a flashback like we had in Last Crusade to a younger Indy, an Indy from the 1940s. And I think that storyline is going to play into whatever he's going to be doing in the 60s. Now, that said, if they do something smart like that, which they should do, David Koepp, if they're listening, you've got to get Anthony Gruber. You've got to put this guy, he's got to be... I don't care if Harrison Ford's the first thing we see and he flashes back to Ingruber, or if Ingruber's the first thing we see, like we did with River Phoenix. But man, this guy's got to get the Indiana Jones role, and he's not being bandied about for young Han Solo. I'm hoping that's just because they're going to be putting him in as young Indy, or younger Indy, or 40s Indy, however you want to put it. But I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to get that established in canon. Here's Indiana Jones. Here he is, just like we would have had River Phoenix or, the young Indiana Jones. It's like any of these things. But I think that is going to establish the next film. And then we're going to get those 40s adventures.
What about the possibility of whoever's being... I know there's a real short list right now as far as who's being cast as young Han Solo. Why not have the guy that's being cast as young Han Solo also take the reins as young Indiana Jones? You killed two birds with one stone.
Yeah,
is it too much?
I do. I think so.
Was it too much for Harrison Ford?
It wasn't, but he's Harrison Ford. And I think with this, because there are just so many movies and so many schedules and so many... look, how many Indiana Jones movies did we get? How many years went on between them because they're all off doing other things? I think if you got 2 different teams, 2 different actors, you can get all those movies. You can get a series of Han Solo movies and a series of Indiana Jones movies. I think Disney's in this to just put out as many movies as they can possibly put out.
I still don't agree with the fact that we're getting a young Han Solo movie. It's not necessary. We're introduced to Han Solo exactly when we need to be introduced. We know this is the IndyCast, guys, but I just feel this needs to be said. We don't need a young Han Solo movie. We don't need it. introduced to Han Solo exactly when we need to be introduced to Han Solo, and that's it. I don't need to know how he met Chewbacca. I don't need to know it. I know there's lots of people out there that probably do want it. Don't need it. Do I want to see?
I'm one of them. Yeah, couldn't disagree with you more. Yeah, I would like.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I just don't need to see it. I like Han Solo the way he has been presented to me, and but as far as Indiana Jones goes, yeah, his life, his entire life, it's always been his entire life has been presented to us in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, in these films, in the novels. It's a chronicle of the ultimate adventurer's life. Why don't we see what happened to him in the 40s? Why don't we see what's happening to him in the 60s? We want a chronicle of his entire life. I think Indiana Jones is the way to go to get younger Indiana Jones movies, not necessarily young Han Solo movies. I don't need to see young Han Solo. I want to see young Indiana Jones.
Maybe one of those young Indiana Jones adventures will be set in 1938.
Ooh, maybe it'll be called Thunder in the Orient.
Maybe it will. I doubt it.
But I hope it's not. I hope it's not. If you're going to do a young Indiana Jones movie, do something better than Thunder in the Orient.
We'll get into this. It has its moments. It does have its moments. Hey, okay, so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be reviewing Dark Horse Comics Indiana Jones 6-issue miniseries, Thunder in the Orient. We've been talking about this for a while. Now, for the purists out there, we are aware that, because we are going through these chronologically, we've established that, but we are aware that Indiana Jones and the Shrine of the Sea Devil was actually written before Thunder in the Orient. It came out, let's see, what was it? An anthology series, October 1992 through January 1993, but it was reprinted as a one-shot after Thunder in the Orient. So we're going to go through, we're going to put that in as the one-shot chronologically as we go through. So we are getting to Indiana Jones and the Shrine of the Sea Devil, so we will get to that. But as far as what...
It's a great story.
Yeah. So we're going to get to that. Thunder in the Orient right now, 6-issue miniseries, so we're going to take that. Let's talk about these covers first. Yeah, we've got Dave Dorman, who, again, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. He does Iron Phoenix, which is coming up too. Unbelievable artist. I believe at the time he just wasn't available for all 6 issues. So he did issue number 1. We've got Hugh Fleming on issues 2 through 6.
Who did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's how these Dark Horse miniseries were really set up. I mean, we've talked about how much they're a mixed bag, when you kind of go through these things. But when they're on the newsstand, when they're on the comic book rack, that's the big thing is you see the Indiana Jones logo. We're selling an Indiana Jones product. And those covers are striking. And I think
there's Harrison Ford's face. It's his face. Yeah, it's not like the Further Adventure covers where it's kind of an appropriated Harrison Ford. It's not really Harrison Ford. But these are it's Indiana Jones. It's Harrison Ford. I remember even as a kid going into the comic book store and seeing these comics just on the stand and being like, oh my God. And you just grabbed every one of them.
Well, that's what it did its job. Then it did its job.
Absolutely.
They're striking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we think about Hugh Fleming. Well, we talked about Dave Dorman in the past. Hugh Fleming is an Australian artist. If you check out theraider.net, our good buddy Mitch running the Raider.net over there, there's a 2002 interview with Paul Shipper with Hugh Fleming. We should probably check into getting him on the IndyCast as well, too, talking to him on the further adventures here. But if you want to check that out, he talks about some of these different things. I mean, again, talk about Star Wars, Tales of the Jedi, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, Shadows of the Empire, Episode 1, Phantom Menace. If you remember that Star Wars Rocks poster, it's like the Star Wars characters in a rock band, at a concert.
Yeah. It's great.
He did that, so we know who he is. And again, what's interesting about these things is some of the covers you get, they're like, oh, that's from Temple of Doom. Oh, that's from Last Crusade. Oh, those publicity stills. Those lifts right from the thing. Hugh apparently took some shots that weren't as well known and worked them in. So it's like you kind of get that they're from, maybe that's Temple of Doom era or maybe that's Last Crusade, but not exactly. So it really kind of lends to the originality of the look of this. And I really love that about these covers.
I totally agree with you. There. Yeah, and apparently Hugh Fleming took a lot of pride in creating scenes throughout these comics and in Star Wars comics that didn't look like they came from well-known photo references that really, really eagle-eyed fans can pick them out, like you or I, who's like, hey, that's from Doom, that's from Raiders. Yeah, he took a lot of pride in doing that.
Another cool thing about him too is that he kind of got the gig when he and a friend pitched Indiana Jones and the Lost Horizon. It was set in the 1920s. It was with Abner, and they kind of had that. It was that Wilford Brimley Abner.
Yep.
But like the comic series, like they got the gig. He got the gig doing these covers from that, and then by the time they were going to go to print, I guess, or start production on Lost Horizon, the sales on the Dark Horse stuff, it was just they just canceled everything Indiana Jones. So that's unfortunate. Yeah. So, but again, you go on the Radar.net, you can see some of that stuff out there. Interesting too. He mentions about some of the editorial decisions. If you look at the cover of issue 4, there's something missing from Indiana Jones there. Did you?
That would be his whip, I believe.
Yeah, he doesn't have a whip there. Yeah, an interesting comment by well, just go on the Radar.net and check out the interview. It's interesting why they.
Yeah, check it out. There's definitely some interesting info on there for sure.
Yeah, but we have
to try to get you Fleming on the show. I think it would be nice to pick his brain a little bit about this.
Yeah, I mean, we look at 2. I mean, that's obviously Last Crusade era, but it's not specific, and we do have Indiana Jones on battling on a train, which is very cool. Issue 3, man, that's just like I just want to open that comic book up and find out what's going on there.
Yeah,
I mean, we
Absolutely.
see that, we see Indy about to just get his head cut off, and it's like, what is going on here? It's not just like these standard here's a movie poster kind of looking thing. It's like these it's action scenes. These are scenes directly from the issues, which I always love.
Well, for me, this is a 6-issue series, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Was it necessary to be 6 issues?
No.
Personally, I think no.
No.
But the thing that why was this 6 issues and in Fate of Atlantis 4? We could have gotten 6 issues with Fate of Atlantis, and 4 would have fit this story just fine. I feel that this story, and we'll get into this.
But we got 2 better covers, right? We'll put a positive spin on it.
Yeah, that was the positive part of Thunder in the Orient for me, is we actually got 2 extra amazing covers.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know, this story is just too bloated for me. There's just too much going on.
Bloated's a good word. Yeah, bloated's a good word.
Yeah,
it's like
just too
there's a
bloated.
lot packed into it. So why don't we talk about the story a little bit? All right, we talked about the late great Dan Barry, from Fate of Atlantis. We talked about, if you missed any of those episodes, or go check them out. We talked about him, but on these issues, he handles all of the writing and the artwork, with the exception of the artwork on issue 6. We'll talk about that a little bit, but basically, this is all Dan Barry. I mean, when you get into this, it's just amazing. On issue 6, it's Dan Spiegel, who had done some work on Gold Key. Dale, we'll get to see his work again on Spear of Destiny. But for this particular miniseries, it's pretty much almost all Dan Barry, which is really cool when you go through this. I personally think he has a good handle on the character of Indiana Jones. He can draw these action scenes and pace these actions. I love the action scenes in this miniseries, but as you mentioned, it does feel bloated. There are a lot of characters. There's a lot of exposition. There's
too many characters.
Yeah.
I just felt, even though there was so much going on, I still felt bored by it. I don't know how much sense that makes, but probably not a lot. But I still was bored by it because I was trying to see, all right, now who is connected with this, and this person is from here, and where are we?
I'll be honest.
Right
I kind of looked at the Indiana Jones wiki as I was going through it to kind of keep track of the characters.
It's just, of course, before we recorded, I sat down and gave it a read again. I'm reading it out of the omnibus, and I just, I had to put it down at least 5 or 6 times. I just, I think I've read it before doing this review tonight, and preparing to read it. I've only read it probably once before when it first was released, because I just wasn't that into it. Wasn't that into it. I mean, we have a couple of returning favorites, in Sophia Hapgood. Was she necessary to come back? That's up for interpretation.
Okay, come back or revisit, or I want to ask you about this, because Fate of Atlantis is set in 1939.
Right.
Okay, this Indiana Jones Thunder in the Orient is set in 1938. Again, we have that opening page We don't necessarily know who all these characters are. We don't know the date, which I thought was very odd because that's such a standard for Indiana Jones is you want to set the date.
That bothered me a bit.
Yeah, we don't find out until issue 3. I think the letters page, somebody said, hey, could you tell us what date this is set in?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's an Indiana Jones standard. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I think they forgot
you give us the location, you give us the date.
Yeah, you kind of have to hunt around for it. And then you don't know until issue 3, it's 1938. So that means it's a prequel to Fate of Atlantis. So, but in Fate of Atlantis, we were kind of introduced to Sophie Hapgood, right?
Right.
And there's I'm almost seeing you for the first time since the 20s, but now we're going back. So that kind of nullifies. Did I read it right, or did you get the same sense?
No, I got exactly the same, Joe, and that also took me out of the story. I think that's just a mistake. But you know what? Come on, man, you got the license. You got Indiana Jones. Do it right.
Yeah.
Do a little research. Make sure you got all your eggs in the same basket there.
Yeah, it starts off a little awkward. I mean, even we're in the city of Bas Shamra.
Yeah,
which should be
which is
Ross.
actually Ross Shamra, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of different things. So again, it kind of a mixed bag. We do get young indie references, which is kind of cool.
Which was cool. I mean, but we also got young indie references in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think this was at a time where they just kind of wanted to kind of tie the canon all together and say, hey, this is an adventure in Indy's life, and so see, because we're referencing something that happened in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which I thought it was a little all right. If you do one, that's okay. I think they do a couple of young indie.
Yeah, they actually pull a panel from the Young Indie Dark Horse.
From the Young Indie Chronicles, that's right. Him writing with, again, the same reference that we had in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, him writing with Pancho Villa. It's the exact same reference. So, I mean, not necessary, but okay, fine.
Not necessary. Cool. I'm okay with it. But again, think about it in broad terms. We have a 6-issue miniseries. You mentioned this. I think it works better as a 4-issue miniseries. And
lots of fat to cut.
Yeah, and that's some of the fat that could have been cut. So I think just some editing would have been good. Less characters. Now, the characters we do have that you and I love, I think, Sophia Hapgood, I love her as a character. So forget She's the date. Great. Just move past the fact that it's a little weird with where the time-wise where this takes place. She's a very good character. I really love her character in this. I'd love to see. I think we talked about this.
Arian 2.0. If you want
I'd love to see her in a movie. Okay, so David Koepp. You listening? Maybe get Sophia Hapgood coming in. That would be kind of cool to see her in a movie. Kamal. Okay. Again, spoiler alert. We're ruining the whole thing for you.
Dangerous Indiana Jones characters to ever exist.
If you haven't read this series, you're probably not going to get the full sense of what Keith and I are talking about. So maybe read it, push pause, and then come back and read it. But this is certainly one of the most interesting characters. I like him as he's introduced, as he's going through. Really, I think by the time you get to issue 4, you kind of realize he's a serial killer, right?
Yes, I mean, but also
he's a kid.
He's disturbed. I think there's definitely some issues going on there. Oh, wow. More issues than a magazine stand.
More issues than Dark Horse Indie Comics.
I mean, this kid is like murdering people left and right.
That's his go-to. It's like when things.
At one point, like he takes off his shirt and he's just got like 30 knives and like belts and I mean, it's like he's a dangerous character.
Yeah, like every turn he's like throwing a knife in somebody's throat or in somebody's chest, and Indy's like
side. I mean, in the throat. I have to say, this is a bloody comic. I mean, there's blood shooting out of like people's necks. This is a really, really intense comic.
It's easily the most violent Indiana Jones story I've read. I will say this: we talk about Dark Horse. We think about the Comics Code Authority. I think DC was the last one to kind of abandon it around 2011. So right here, firmly entrenched in the Comics Code world, you don't see these things in Marvel Comics in this era. Dark Horse did not put the Comics Code Authority on the covers. They didn't go by it or anything. Sin City, they had like all these different comic books and things out. I think Dell and Gold Key, they were the other comic book publishers that didn't use that. So you could do things like this that you couldn't necessarily get in Marvel Comics and DC Comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s, things like that.
Yes.
And it's like, oh,
very graphic, very graphic.
I mean, there's a
stuff in here.
beheading.
Yeah.
In this, there is. I mean, I'm not kidding about that. There's, you know, and again, set it in the time period too. You know, the winds of war, fast approach. You know, all these different things. Different time period. A lot of armies, a lot of gunfire. You know, and you think about Raiders. We talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark earlier. It's a pretty violent film. I mean, Indiana Jones is a pretty violent character, and we see that. There's a scene almost in this book. I'm forgetting which issue it's in, but it's in issue 2. We see there's almost that sort of scene that's like, you know, Indy's almost going to get shot in the bar, and then Marion shoots the guy from behind.
Yeah,
there's almost that scene in here where Indy's about to, you know, meet his demise, and is it Kamal? I think, yeah. I mean,
and don't forget, Indy kills a horse.
Well,
flat out murders a horse, and they're crossing this like small rope thing, and I
want to think that the horse hit the water and made it.
I don't know, man.
We don't know. There's no confirmation either way.
Like, sorry, man. Sorry, horse. No choice there. Gotta cut that horse free.
I know. There's like this bridge. I'm like, what bridge? And it's just a rope. And it's not a rope bridge. It's a rope. A bridge made of one rope. So they have to just
send them over on these like small cradles, and a horse gets stuck in the middle, and Kamal also gets stuck, and Indy has to just kind of crawl out there and just cut that horse down. Yeah. And I mean, there's some pretty intense moments in this comic.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll choose to think that the horse survived. Well, there's this scene I think in issue 3 too, where it reminds me a lot of like Never Say Never Again. You know, when when James Bond invades the compound. And Kim Basinger is like being auctioned off, which we have with Sophie. I wonder if that, you know, inspired, because I think they came out in 83. Yeah.
There's tons of influence. I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but
but there's a scene where the horses go over into the water, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well those ones made it. maybe the other horse made it.
But there's tons of influences all around this this series. I mean, even from Rambo 3 to even from Indiana Jones itself, from Last Crusade, the Are You Crazy? You know, there's tons in here.
So there's cool stuff. I will say this. I do like this adventure. I don't dislike Indiana Jones Thunder in the Orient. It does feel a little heavy. I think it could have really used some tightening up. Like a lot of movies we see. You know, we always say like, oh, you could have knocked 20 minutes out of that. I think you could have done the same thing with this. The MacGuffin. You want to talk a little bit about the MacGuffin?
Yes, let's do that.
We do have one.
Yes, we're finally getting around to that. It's the Covenant of Buddha.
Yeah, the Covenant of Buddha. And,
the Covenant of Buddha.
Yeah, and there's some interesting characters too. We've got Theo Van Aken. Aken, you know, he goes in and he's another one of these guys. Like, it happens so many times in this story too. Is there anybody that hasn't stolen artifacts from Indiana Jones?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm glad that Marcus trusts Indy, but at some point you got to be like, hey, come on, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Everybody's stealing some stuff.
Yeah.
So apparently this Covenant of Buddha, basically original writings and precepts of Buddha in his own words. And then a legend tells that the Covenant holds a great and mystical power that was hidden away to prevent it from getting into the wrong hands. Now, Indy and Sophie, they talk about this legendary treasure. They realize there's another unforeseen power, the unification of the thousands of Asia's Buddhists under one precept, even though Buddhism is all about peace and harmony. But somehow
that gets a little weird too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they talk about like all these pagan influences that they had into the culture, and that's why there's warlike. Yeah.
It's very strange, but of course, you know, this being the world of Indiana Jones, there's all kinds of hidden dangers all throughout, hidden throughout. So yeah, another group seeks to claim this power. Of course, the Empire of Japan, who see it as a way to control all these countries that they're currently invading pre-World War II. This leads Indy, Sophie, the Japanese on a desperate chase across Asia that leads into the depths of anywhere from Afghanistan to the heights of the legendary Shangri-La. Again,
it's kind of Shangri-La, yeah.
Yeah, which was the focus of Lost Horizon. Yeah.
Right.
So basically, you know,
Barry did his homework. You got to give him credit. Dan Barry did his homework on this adventure.
For sure. And Fleming, I mean, he kind of got his wish. He got an Indiana Jones and a Lost Horizon. They do kind of go to Shangri-La, but what's called it's not exactly Shangri-La. It's
Chanriha, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The Lost City in the Himalayas, which is kind of cool. Again, it's like I wish we could have gotten to that maybe a couple of issues earlier.
Yeah,
you know, that's an interesting place to put Indiana Jones. A lot of these locations too. We talk about Nepal and India. You know, we've seen these in a lot of Indiana Jones adventures. So, you know, harkening back to some of these things too. I think it's an okay MacGuffin. I mean, basically, can we unify 500 million people?
To do what?
Well,
you know what
to
I mean?
do our bidding. I mean, it's like, you know, I don't know. I mean, if they're all allied under Buddha, and then you say, I speak for Buddha, and you tell them what to do. I mean, there's always these things, you know, as the winds of war approach, you know, again, it's like, how can we get as many people as possible on our side?
On our side. Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting MacGuffin. It does set them off on a search. I mean, we've got Afghanistan. There's a lot of cool locations. There's some cool villains I think we go through, but there's just, again, so many of them. So many characters. I start to get lost. The coolness of the ones I like start to get lost in the ones that I really don't know, understand, or care about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Van Aken, who gets shot in the neck by Masashi Kyojo,
again,
who's another, you know, another villain in the story, and then you get you just keep getting introduced to like new villain after new villain, and okay, then this one dies, and then there's another one that comes in, and it just seems like, I don't know, I'm not getting invested in any of these villains, or I don't know, it lost me at a certain point.
I agree. I can kind of mentally jettison some of the stuff that doesn't, the extra baggage. I mean, think about it. I mean, we. You know, some of the artwork. I mean, we talk about issue 2. Okay, when you flip through, there's an incredible 2-page spread, giant splash page of these, you know, warriors, these soldiers on horseback coming. You know, that's amazing. There's a great train fight on a train, and the train goes off the tracks. It almost looks like Back to the Future 3 as it goes over the, you know, and it crashes, and Indy's kind of in there. You know, Dan Barry really knows how to draw these action scenes and really knows how to pace them. Issue 3, we start seeing going from the straight up comic book look to some of those Kerry Gamble layouts that we like. You know, those little circular pulp, comics and pulp stories from the past that we like, the serial adventures. We start to see a lot of those different things. But issue 3, unfortunately, is also where it started to drag for me. That's where it started to feel bloated. And there's even, I think, wasn't there like a lag, like several months in between issues around that time?
Yes, there was. I think between 5 and 6, wasn't there?
Somewhere around that time. Yeah, there was like it had taken a couple of months for it to come out, and it was
maybe just didn't even. They were like, "What do we do? You know, who knows? Maybe they just decided to change something. Who knows?" I have to say, some of the comedy works quite well. Also, one of my favorite moments is when Indy and Sophia are in that cave, and they're I guess they're translating that stone, and they have Kamal waiting for them outside, and just to kind of as a lookout to warn them if anybody's coming. And then that old kind of monk comes in. Yeah, and it starts raining, and Kamal is trying to warn them, and he's whistling, and he just can't do it. It's
one of the few light moments with Kamal.
Yeah,
when he's not throwing a dagger into somebody's neck.
And I thought that was kind of funny. So there are moments, and again, like that old man too. He comes in, he kind of gives a little bit of information there, and then he kind of like falls asleep and dies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
just
There's just like these strange, odd moments in this story.
Just enough to give the expositional dialogue, and then he's gone.
Yeah, he's giving like tons of exposition, and then he just like kind of dies.
Yeah.
It's just very, very strange.
Yeah, a lot going on. And, you know, again, we keep talking about Kamal, too. It's just like, you know they were trying to go with a short round.
Short round 2.0.
Short round 2.0, yeah. Maybe, you know, even some Willie Scott here or something like that. But it's almost, again, just imagine if Short Round were a serial killer. I mean, it's just like...
Man, who says he didn't turn out to be a serial killer?
I don't know. It's like we see him doing karate and things, you know, but it's just like, you know, in this one, it's like, you know, this kid's pretty scary. Yeah, so, but there are definitely, look, you talk about the comedic moments. We almost have like a sort of a German mechanic scene where Indy goes up against this huge thug. And there's a great moment with the hat, with the fedora.
Indy's hat,
yeah, we talked about artists in the past that, you know, where's Indy's hat? You know, well, I didn't like to draw the hat. Dan Barry does not shy away from drawing the hat. There are so many hat jokes throughout here. There's even one where like a Sherpa dies and Indy seems more concerned about his hat that survived.
Yeah. I mean, out of character for Indy. I mean,
a little
you
bit.
could say maybe a little bit, but again, that could editing could have helped all of that. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, but there are a lot of. I mean, we've got Indy on horseback. We've got a lot of really cool action scenes. I think Dan Barry really captures the spirit of Indiana Jones. I think in many panels he really captures Harrison Ford. We get to issue 6, complete change of artist at this point.
Style, yeah,
But I still like it.
I still like it too. I thought it was it fit quite well, but I mean, of course, I would have liked to have had the same style throughout. But I mean,
it is jarring. I mean, it is jarring if you're reading it in totality. If you're binge reading it, one shot or something like that. But
it did remind me a little bit more like you said, Kerry Gamble layout, but definitely reminded me of Further Adventure, an issue of Further Adventures.
A lot closer to that. Yep, I agree.
It looks like it could have fit right in. But then, of course, in that 6th issue, you get that Child of Red, and again, and he's there for a few minutes, and then he gets. He gets stabbed by Kamal. He gets gutted by Kamal. He's out of the story kind of quick, too. Kamal kind of stabs him. He's about to get his head cut off, and Indy shoots him in the head. A little reminiscent also of Raiders there. But, I mean, there's just so many
there's
characters.
That Raiders Indy, though. We talk about that. There's that Raiders Indy that you like. So if you like that Indy, who, we think about Indiana Jones now, but in Raiders, he's pretty violent. He's shooting people left and right. You get that in this adventure. It's just that there's a lot of people getting shot and stabbed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get more violence. We get in issue 3. Going back to issue 3, we get a lot of violence from the Japanese soldiers. And we have an interesting kind of almost German mechanic type in Sergeant Itaki, also, who I thought was interesting. But again, another villain being introduced. It's just too much.
It's a good character. I mean, maybe spread these out over a couple of different series. It's just like it's almost like again, it felt like. To use a current reference, Batman v Superman, where you just like trying to get so much into one, like let's get all these great stories into one thing, and then it just becomes this convoluted mess overall. We talked about getting to Chandraha. Look, again, there's a map. They find the statue, and they find a map in the statue, and then they go there. There's the Japanese, and then the Afghanis, and like everybody's like going after this, to get. Obviously, the MacGuffin, the Covenant of Buddha. That's what we're trying to get to. So it does take several issues too long to get there. Yeah. And honestly, once we get there, they find it.
And it's like it just dissolves in about 2 panels.
Yeah, it starts to do like kind of an Oriana thing, where like it's exposed to air and it starts to go, and then it's like cover it up quick, and then it falls into the. And then there's like a Last Crusade moment where it falls into the crack in the earth or whatever.
And they're pretty much like, well, okay, time to go.
It's like 3 panels. Like 3 panels. You made me sit through 6 issues.
Yeah,
and the MacGuffin's gone in like 3 panels.
Indiana Jones stories, it's mostly about the journey getting there.
I know. Okay.
And as we know, that's part of the formula. You get there, Indy always loses the MacGuffin.
Not the Cross of Coronado, he didn't.
Yeah, he wound up bringing that one home. But there was a part of this comic that also reminded me a bit of. I'm really reaching now. Rambo 3 when they're playing that game.
Because of the exact scene that was lifted from the movie.
The exact scene that was lifted from
I wonder what reminded you of that.
Oh my goodness! As I was reading that, it's from Rambo 3 when they're playing. The Mujahideen are playing that game on horseback where they have to drag a dead goat into the opponent's circle. Yeah. And man, if they just did not lift that for this comic.
I mean, it came out a few years earlier. So again, and that's more fat that could have been trimmed. You didn't need it.
Wasn't necessary.
It wasn't necessary, and it wasn't original. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not that is a direct, take from Rambo 3, somebody along the lines of somebody had to have seen that and could have just gone like, look, this is from Rambo 3. We just don't want that in there. Let's knock this down. I mean, did it have to be a 6-issue miniseries? Maybe it was contractually they were obligated to deliver a 6-issue miniseries. I don't know.
Stuff in there said, okay, what are some? All right, this is where Indy is. What can we grab from these cultural backgrounds? Okay. Yeah. This is something famous in Afghanistan. Let's do this.
I think as an action adventure, the comic book miniseries works. I think there are so many great action-oriented Indiana Jones set pieces. I think the comedy's there. I think the characters that we like, even Kamal, although he's a little extreme.
Psycho Kamal.
Oh, knife, dagger wielding.
There's a few things you don't want to call Kamal. You don't want to call him Kid.
No.
You don't want to call him Ham.
No.
All of these things that Indy should probably know better.
Yeah.
Come on.
Indy
should know better than to insult this kid and his religion.
Yeah.
And his. I mean, come on, Indy knows where this kid comes from. Sorry, come on.
You go, you get a knife in the throat.
I don't want to make that same mistake Indy makes, but he knows where this boy comes from, and he doesn't want to he doesn't want to insult him.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kamal gets insulted a few times and gets quite angry, and
he's on a hair trigger. I mean, Kamal's really on a hair trigger.
Yeah, you definitely just don't want to get Kamal angry.
No, this kid's on a hair trigger. Oh, kid, I just... I'm dead. Oh, but he's a memorable character. I love Sophia Hapgood. Yeah, there's some very cool moments in it. It's just, let's trim the fat. Let's knock this thing down. Let's retroactively go back in time, knock this thing down to a 4-issue miniseries. I think we got a tight indie adventure. Give me a less anticlimactic ending. I think let's do a little better on the ending. Let's do a little, just something.
And then you get introduced to the Serpent Lady, who is nicknamed.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about her. Yeah,
it's like she kind of shows up and like she's a slave, and so Sophia treats her nicely and kind of frees her, and it turns out she's the Serpent Lady, and she's a leader of all these the general of a faction of Chinese bandits in 1938. Yeah. What? Where did this come from? It's just all of this stuff is just it's too much.
But wouldn't it have been better in another adventure? Wouldn't she have been better as the lead in another adventure?
Absolutely. Okay. Reminded me a lot of those what were those Herb Trimpe books that he wrote for
right, yeah.
Right? I mean, where we had a female lead for a villain.
Yeah.
Great. Reminded me a lot of that. Yeah, let's put her in her own but again, to mix her with the Japanese, with the, it's just again.
So, it's not bad stuff. It's a lot of good stuff. It just all happens to be in the same story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you can kind of cut through a lot of the clutter, there's a lot of good Indiana Jones moments here. Overall, I give it a positive review. I like it. I think it's one of the better Indiana Jones Dark Horse comic book series. Like we said with Fate of Atlantis, it felt like the video game thing to me. It's like get this to go here, get this to go here. It kind of felt like that. This one feels like more of an Indiana Jones adventure to me.
I agree with you. Great covers, amazing covers. I would buy these single issues just for the covers alone. Story, it's okay. A little bloated, like we said. Overall, I like the set pieces too. I love the sidekick. I love Sophia Hapgood. She's used quite well here. Marion 2.0, Short Round 2.0. The MacGuffin, I could take it or leave it. It's all about the adventure getting there. I would recommend this comic if you got nothing else to read, but there's plenty of other plenty of other Indiana Jones adventures out there that are better than this one.
You call it more of a firecracker in the Orient?
Yeah, not exactly thunder, more like a slow rumble in the Orient. slow, boring rumble in the Orient.
A stomach rumbling in the Orient?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, my stomach was rumbling after taking all the time and reading through these like 6 issues.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a couple of cool things if you get the actual comic book. So if you have the Dark Horse Omnibus, which I believe you have. Yeah, you get these letters.
I'm reading it out of the omnibus, of course, but you get the letter pages when you buy the single issues, which is, of course, you get a lot of great information out there. And there's some interesting ones in these issues for sure.
Yeah. So there, and we get that date. It's set, but there's also a cool page 2 with Frank Miller's eulogy to the great Jack Kirby at that time too. So that's in the comic book.
That was in issue 5. That was in issue 5.
So go get it. Check it out. There's some really cool aspects. Again, it's a time capsule. We go back, and it's an Indiana Jones adventure. It's an okay Indiana Jones adventure. I think I liked it a little bit better than you did.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say. But overall, not bad.
Not terrible, but not great. Not terrible, but not great. I would, if I had a choice, like I said, this is probably wouldn't be my first, second, third, or even maybe fourth choice.
Yeah, to me, read, a step up from Fate of Atlantis. But I think there are better things are to come.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, speaking of better things to come, let's check out the mailbag.
Mister, get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now.
Oh, dear me. I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna.
Well, we heard from Mick Wright, who wrote in, and he says, "Hello, Joe and Keith. I just want to let you know that I enjoyed your coverage of the Indiana Jones Adventures of Archaeology exhibit. I was able to see the exhibit in Fort Worth, Texas. I agree with you that the gift shop should have sold a souvenir program or book about the exhibit." Well, that is for sure, Keith.
Oh, absolutely.
He says, "I felt so strongly about it that I made my own. I thought you might enjoy these pics. I was surprised how well the book turned out." Thanks so much for writing in, Mick. Go check out the IndyCast Flickr page.
Yes.
I want this.
I want this too.
I want it.
Mick, send us one. Please.
It looks really cool. This is what they should have had.
An amazing job. And I mean, come on. How could they have not had something like this?
It was very strange. I mean, unless we didn't see it, but I'm not hearing from anybody that they saw it either. Like that.
As far as I know, I've never seen one.
Strange.
Yeah, but I mean, Mick, your souvenir program book looks completely professional and amazing, and let us know where we can get one, please.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. So, and you can also check out the Further Adventures Facebook page, where Keith, your lovely assistant, Kay, she was nice enough to be able to take like 1 billion pictures for us.
Oh yeah, she took a lot of pictures, and most of them are up there. I think. Right?
I think we put a bunch of them up there. Yeah, I mean, we took so many,
yeah.
but we kind of went through and did like the best of the best to give everyone. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, give us a like on Facebook. Go check that out. All of Kay's pictures are on there. It's Keith and myself being goofy and podcasting, and our lovely wives, our long-suffering wives, putting up with us on this trip. You get to see that out there. But yeah, we had a blast out there. Again, thanks for writing in, Mick, and yeah, go check it out.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
All right, that is the school bell. Indiana Jones is telling us it is time to wrap things up. Man, we had a lot to talk about. I'm glad we finally got to weigh in on Indiana Jones 5. Really enjoyed everybody's comments so far on the IndyCast. Everybody's been weighing in. We're getting excited. We're getting pumped, Keith. I mean, it's
absolutely.
It's only 3 years away.
we have at least 3 more years of the IndyCast to do.
Not that. Not that. 3 years I gotta wait. We love the 3 years of the IndyCast.
No, it's great. It's great to do this again with you. It's like putting on an old pair of comfortable shoes every time we do this, Joe. Always fun talking Indy with you, talking Indy comics with you. Hey, and now we can talk Indy 5, what that's going to mean for the show, what that's going to mean for Indiana Jones. We are excited to bring you everything that will come in the following years. Yeah. We're as excited about it as you guys are, and yeah,
I'm
we
really
hope to
pumped
hear from
about
all
this.
of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, because I think you got a chance to, like, the IndyCast launched about a year before the lead up to Crystal Skull, so you were kind of on the ride as it went along. I came in after Crystal Skull premiered, so I'm looking forward to the ride this time.
Yes.
Just kind of the ride, the ramp up to the movie. I missed that the first time around on the IndyCast. Kind of had to go play catch up. You got to go on that ride. You get to jump on that ride again, Keith. So This is going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy taking this ride with you. We're going to find everything to talk about as we go through. Ron and Laird are already starting. They've got a breakdown of Raiders of the Lost Ark on the last IndyCast special.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, it's fun, man. We're getting all psyched. Look, we always talk about Indiana clones and different things and Star Wars. And now
we can talk about a movie.
Indiana Jones, real stuff. It's
real
fun.
Stuff. The good stuff.
The good stuff. We're having a blast.
Man.
In addition to talking about Indiana Jones 5, Keith and I are going to be back next time to talk about the 4-issue miniseries. Keith, it's 4 issues this time.
Oh, thank goodness.
Indiana Jones
and a better one. And a better one.
And a better one, yes. Indiana Jones and the Arms of Gold. That is coming your way next time on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.